My favorite thing about my job is being able to work with so many creative people. I often tell people I work in professional arts and crafts um, because, I have coworkers who are just playing with dolls all day, and then other coworkers who are creating miniature landscapes that are like the most stunning things I've ever seen. And then I have coworkers who are incredibly talented camera people and VFX artists. And being able to just kind of exist amongst that is so inspiring and so cool. And it makes me feel really special and happy to be able to be a part of kind of this just like factory of people who want to create something together and are creating something together. Uh, and so, I mean, that's absolutely my favorite part. Technically, my favorite part is running dailies because I get to sit behind a computer and be in control of what, the theater full of camera people, art people, puppets, everybody that's working on different aspects is looking at it on a big full-size movie screen. And I'm behind a computer running it, which, in the beginning was horrifying. I was so scared. Um, but it's so fun now, and it's really cool to be able to be a part of it and I don't know, have a small role in creating something like that. I work at a stop motion animation studio called LAIKA. We've made movies like Coraline and Paranorman. Right now we're working on a movie called Wildwood. And what I do there is I'm the media services lead. Essentially what me and my team do is build a bridge between the animators and the stages and the ADs and directors and the VFX department. And we'll take shots and we'll turn those over to VFX and kind of do everything in between. We'll also do things like run daily sessions where we'll review the footage that gets shot throughout the day, as well as weeklies, which is the same thing, but at the end of the week.
So, how did you get interested or involved in filmmaking?
I've always kind of had a love of photography. And I think when I was like 10 or 12, my mom got me my first camera, and it just kind of grew from there. In Salt Lake City, there's this amazing place called Spy Op, and I had the opportunity to go, and my first class there was something called Real Stories, and we make, short documentaries. And once I was at Spy Op, I kind of never left. And so I ended up really falling in love with documentary filmmaking. And I feel really glad that I had the opportunity and a space like that where I could really explore those interests and that creative part of me. And yeah, so that's really where it all came from. I had a really great community around who helped me really kind of water those seeds that were able to bloom into what's turned into a career, which is crazy.
Where did you go to school and what did you major in?
I went to Seattle University in Washington State, and I double majored in film studies and journalism. The reason I did that is because I really wanted to focus on documentaries. And so in my mind, I wanted to have the journalistic perspective and training to be able to go into things ethically and with a well-rounded view and just kind of have that basis. And so that's why I did that double major. And then the film studies stuff ended up just, helping me round out that film perspective. I am glad I did the journalism degree as well. It has helped me as far as like actually getting jobs. And while I was in college, I started working for the PBS station up in Seattle called KCTS. That was my first internship. And it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I really doubled down on the documentary stuff, which I'm so glad I did. I really am. It was really fun. I learned a lot, and it opened a lot of doors for me. And I'll just tag on to that. Another cool thing about the journalism and documentary kind of track that I took is that I got to be kind of a mini expert on a bunch of things. I would interview people about this and that. And so for a while, I was learning so many cool things in depth, just like a crash course, which was also really rewarding. So, as I fancy myself a lifelong learner. And I think being able to capture a lot of that on camera and be able to share that knowledge is really powerful and just a really special thing to be able to do.
That's amazing advice for students. A great answer. Great. So could you dive a little deeper into your experience working on different news stations?
what I would do as a special projects producer were intensive, deep dive, investigative, or just really kind of dense pieces that would air once a week. And so I would be working on a bunch of stories all at once and just really honing in on like whatever topic I was exploring. And so that was really cool because I was becoming, you know, a mini expert in all of these things for a short amount of time. I can only retain so much. But it really was a very cool experience because I got to meet a lot of people, build out that network. I got to become an even better storyteller because I was forced to tell all these stories in under 2 minutes. On the rare occasion that the executive producer would be like, "Okay, you can have 3 minutes." What a joy. But it really did give me the skills to be able to just hone in on exactly what's important to a story and why it's important to a story, because oftentimes you have to fight for it. You have to fight to keep it in. And so if I didn't have a good enough reason to say this needs to be in this piece and this is why, then, you know, it would get cut. The way I got involved with LAIKA was originally just a job posting that I found on LinkedIn. And because so much of my work history is documentary focused, I didn't think I'd hear back. I was like, this is a long shot, but this place is awesome. And from my experience teaching at Spy Hop and as a student at Spy Hop, you know, I knew the basics of stop motion animation, and I can discuss that sort of thing, which really worked in my favor. So to my shock, I did hear back from LAIKA, and I warrant that to a couple of things. And the first thing is that I wrote an awesome cover letter. And I do think this is important advice for people applying for jobs right now, especially like first jobs and internships, is if you can have an engaging cover letter that has a great hook, isn't just listing out your resume, but like truly tells a story and kind of, you know, it has a flavor of your personality. Like maybe put a joke in there. I don't know, like throw in that you play D&D, get weird. I think having a solid cover letter was really important for me because I do think that it made me stand out a little bit. And I actually was told that later. And in addition to that, I had before my interview, even just with the recruiter with my screening call, I creeped on every single person I knew worked in the department I was applying for. And so I did a lot of research. And I made sure that I knew what I was talking about. And, you know, I did invest a lot of time during the application process for the job that I currently have, making myself knowledgeable not only about like the stop motion process, but also about the company as a whole and the culture there. And I do think that helped me get noticed, and I'm so glad I did because I love my job, and I feel so thankful and lucky to be where I'm at. And it was a pivot for me to go from documentaries and news to stop motion animation. It was definitely a pivot, but one that I'm really happy I made, and one that I'm really happy I had the skill set to be able to make.
You've kind of mentioned it already, but just so we have it, can you walk us through a typical workday for you?
So a typical workday for me starts at about 8 a.m. I get into the office, I open up my computer, and the first thing we do every morning usually is a daily session. So we'll go over all of the things that need to be approved or talked about, and that's a great way to kick off the day. So we start in the theater, do all that. Moving on from there, I work between departments as a bridge, taking footage or just general content that needs to be turned over from one department to another. So for instance, VFX needs to give something to editorial. I do that. There are a lot of technical aspects of my job that I am not allowed to talk about, but it does keep me very busy. There are also other fun things that I get to do. So we have like in-studio events in the theater, and part of my job is helping run those. So I run the AV for those with my awesome team, and we're basically the techies. So we have, you know, we're the ones controlling the sound on the mic board, we're the ones controlling the video on screen, the screen itself, all the lighting in there. So all that fun AV stuff is something that my team gets to do too, which is a lot of fun. The answer to what my favorite project I've worked on so far is kind of I kind of have a twofold answer for that, and that's just because they're so different. So in my most recent jobs at WETA in Washington, D.C., I worked on a show called Signature Dish, which is a food show. We would go all around the DMV, so DC, Maryland, Virginia, to different restaurants, exploring like different amazing dishes at these different restaurants all over. And that was a very intense show, really fast paced, really fun. One of the reasons it was one of my favorite projects to work on is because we actually did it in 2020. It was during the pandemic, which may sound unsafe, but we were very safe about it. But the reason that's important is because we worked with such a skeleton crew that it got really intimate, and we were all able to really like form this bond where we understood each other. We knew what needed to be done. We knew how to get it done, and we knew how to create pieces that were engaging and fun and people like us would actually want to watch. So I loved working on Signature Dish. It was awesome. And right now, I love my job. I do. I love the team that I work with. I love that I'm able to work with such creative people. And it's really cool being able to work on something that's more of a narrative and the story's already there. And to be able to build with that and around it, it's so different and so fun. And, you know, it's the first like feature film I've ever worked on, which is really cool and it's really fun. So it's a new experience, a fun experience. And yeah, I'm really loving it so far.
What advice would you give a student in pursuit of a career in the film or TV production industry?
The advice that I would give a student pursuing a career in film or TV is to network as much as possible. Talk to as many people as you can, make as many friends as you can. And you know, you don't need to be best friends with these people, but having a good connection with people who are interested in the same things as you, they're gonna think of you later, and they're gonna know like, oh, I know this really nice human. They're easy to get along with. They have these skills, and that's really all you need. So I think building your network is the most important thing, as well as being able to write a really solid cover letter. And I think another thing that's really important is just keeping an open mind and always be learning. You know, you can't graduate from school and then stop learning, especially in film and TV, because the technology is constantly changing. So I think just keeping up to date, always keeping an open mind and learning. Keep writing. Writing is so important. Even if you're not a writer, I do think that writing is so important to storytelling. But yeah, I think my number one piece of advice is talk to people, get to know people. You know, even if they can't necessarily help you in your career, they might have some great stories, and that's just fun and also useful as a storyteller. So